Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Luz Santiago. I lived in Brooklyn my whole life. It became really difficult to find a place I could afford to live until 5 years ago when I first moved in to one of the city's affordable apartments. This neighborhood has changed so much, and it has become so hard to find a place where individuals and families can actually afford to live. I used to work 3 jobs just to pay my rent of $1,200 for a small, tiny studio. In a lot of neighborhoods, paying even that rent would have made me pretty lucky. I volunteer at the Brooklyn Community Recovery Center, helping people get their lives back together. A staff member suggested that I should apply for affordable housing. I did that right away. Weeks later, I got a call for an appointment. Months later, finalized the paperwork, and I was moving into an affordable apartment. It is my home. It makes me feel safe. It makes me so proud, especially the little things like having a window in my bathroom. We all deserve that. I am so thankful we have a mayor that is fighting for people like me so we can stay in the neighborhood I love. Because of Mayor Blasio, my apartment is going to stay affordable till 2047. Wow, imagine that. I used to worry if my rent would go up next month or maybe they would throw me out for someone else who can pay a higher rent. Now I know I'm protected for the long term. I thank you, Mayor. Thank you. Everyone, let me introduce you to our great Mayor, Bill D. de Blasio. Thank you, sir.
Those are tears of joy.
Yes.
Luz, we're very, very happy for you. We're very happy for you, someone who is a Brooklynite, loves this borough, loves this neighborhood, and all you wanted was to be able to live here and help be a part of this wonderful community. And I want to congratulate you and thank you for joining us here today, and thank you for everything you said. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Well, I have to tell you, there are so many people in this borough, so many people in this city who have been going through exactly what Luz has been going through, wondering if they could stay in their neighborhood, wondering if they could make ends meet, even if they're working 1 job, 2 jobs, even 3 jobs in some cases, hasn't been enough. And there's so many people who are doing the right thing but didn't have the security of knowing whether their home would be there for them for the long term and for their family. So we're here today with some very good news about affordable housing in this neighborhood and all over the city. Across the street from us now, 4 buildings which house 65 tenants, 65 New Yorkers live in those buildings, including Luz and her family. I want to thank the city's HPD, and I want to thank our partners at BEC, New Communities Housing, and the Hudson Companies. Because of them, those 4 buildings and 9 others throughout Bed-Stuy and Crown Heights will remain affordable for 30 years. 30 years that these families will be guaranteed a good, clean, safe, affordable place to live. City is providing the funds necessary for critical repairs at these 13 buildings, replacing roofs and windows, repairing crumbling facades, upgrading the lobbies and the common areas, all the things to make these quality buildings for the long term. And in turn, BEC and Hudson will keep all 212 apartments affordable for another generation of households earning as little as $24,000 a year. And 21 units will now be set aside for formerly homeless families, people who will now have a home for the long term. So think about it. In a neighborhood where so many residents are worried right now They're worried about what the rent will be next year. For these families, they can rest easy for the next 30 years, knowing that they'll be able to afford these homes. That's very good news, and if we were just announcing that, it would be a perfectly good reason to call you all here. But there's so much more to tell you about today. These 212 apartments that have been preserved are part of something much, much bigger that was achieved in 2015. In 2015, through the great work of HPD and HDC and so many of our partners, we can now announce the final total for how much housing is being created as a result of the work in 2015, how much housing was preserved and how much housing was financed to be built. The grand total of apartments for 2015 is 21,041 apartments. And that is the highest annual total for the city of New York in a quarter century, 25 years. Congratulations to all of you. I can say that you'll hear from Vicki and Gary in a moment, but they're the kind of people who like to set records. Well, you just set a record. Congratulations. And you made us all very proud. That includes 13,862 preserved apartments like Luz's and 7,179 new construction units. The highest number of new units ever secured by the Department of Housing Preservation and Development in any single year. So they've got a record for the last 25 years in the total number of units, both preserved and new, and they've got the highest number of units financed in any year in this city's history. And that is something to be very, very proud of. Brings the grand total for our plan. Maybe you haven't seen it lately. Let me show it to you. The grand total for this plan announced now, it was announced in May of 2014, and this plan is going like gangbusters right now because of the great folks working on it. The grand total for the 2 years we've been working on Housing New York, 40,204 apartments that will be affordable for New Yorkers. 40,204 apartments, enough to house over 100,000 New Yorkers. And that's a lot for this whole team to be proud of. That is now putting us actually ahead of pace to reach our goal of 200,000 units by the end of 2024. So this team took an incredibly difficult goal, and they've now managed to actually get ahead of pace in fulfilling it. Now, you know this is the most ambitious municipal affordable housing plan in the history of the country. And let's talk about the people who have achieved this extraordinary progress. Alicia Glenn couldn't be with us today, but her leadership has been extraordinary and effective throughout. You're going to hear from two heroes of the day, our HPD Commissioner, Vicki Bean, and our HDC President, Gary Rodney. I also want to thank our HARA Commissioner, Steve Banks, for being with us. I know this announcement is important to him and the work he is doing as well. But we also have to thank everyone who works at HPD, everyone who works at HDC. These are unsung heroes. They don't get on the front pages, but boy, the work they do. Raphael, I like that you're nodding because you know from experience, the work they do is extraordinary for this city. I also want to thank some of the leaders of these agencies, Eric Enderlin, the Deputy Commissioner for Development of HPD, Ken Curlin, the Deputy General Counsel at HPD, for the extraordinary work they do. We're going to be joined by some council members. We'll announce them when they come in. But they're leaders of the community board here whose support and partnership is crucial. I want to thank Chair of Community Board 3, Tremaine Wright, and District Manager of Community Board 3, Henry Butler, for the work they do. Let's give them a round of applause and thank them. And my friend, success has many mothers and fathers. So this success is everyone I've named, but also all of our development partners, the nonprofit partners, the financial institution partners who are part of this effort. We need all of them, and they've all been crucial to this work. I also want to thank our many allies who have supported this vision for affordable housing and our partners in this effort as well, the labor unions, the clergy, the community organizations from all over the 5 boroughs who believe we need the most ambitious affordable housing plan in the history of this nation and are doing a lot to help us achieve it. I want to thank them all. Now, I'm finding the right page. Here we go. I've said to you guys, you know, wherever I go, boy, this is one of these truisms that proves to be consistent. Wherever I go, number one concern I hear about, affordability. How do I pay the rent? Am I going to be able to find someplace I can afford? Am I going to be able to stay in my home? Am I going to be able to stay in my neighborhood? I hear one question or another like that all the time. I hear the question all the time, what is affordable? Now, I talked to you about the fact that these units are going to be for folks earning as little as $24,000 a year. That is truly what we talk about when we say affordable housing for so many people in the city. There are people who make more money who need affordable housing too. But so much of what we're achieving is reaching those who are really struggling to make ends meet. So I hear it all over. I hear from people like Luz, who are living in communities that have gone through a lot of change and are asking tough and legitimate questions about what are we going to do to balance that change. We know some of the change that's happening in our communities over these last 10 or 20 years is positive. We also know a lot of people have been displaced, and we know there's a lot of challenges that come with that change. Too many people have been priced out, and I think the city government didn't do enough to address the issue. Now we're here to do something different, to reach more people, to create some real balance in the equation. We know that people want to stay in the communities that they have been a part of their whole lives in many cases, or in many cases for generations. Communities they literally built, communities they stood by during some tough times back in the 70s, the 80s. We want to give people a chance to stay in the neighborhood they love. You heard about the buildings that are being preserved here. For many families who struggle every day, those are the kinds of families who will be housed in more than 70% of the apartments that we secured in 2015. So a lot of people have been asking the question, are we making sure a lot of these units are available for folks at the lowest income levels? The answer is yes. And who are those people? A lot of them are seniors. Some of them are veterans. They're grandmothers and grandfathers. There are a lot of people who have done a lot for all of us and deserve this chance for an affordable life. We're very, very proud of the numbers, but the numbers, again, they represent human beings. They represent families. They represent a difference between a family that struggles and a family that has security. You know, when someone gets affordable housing, not only can they finally make ends meet, it gives them the chance to do some things that they've wanted to do for a long time. Catch up on other bills, get financially stronger, maybe invest in education for their children. Things that families deserve, but it so often keys in on having an affordable place to live. So we are looking for every way to reach every family we can, but we also recognize that this is more than just about a number of families. This is about the effect it has on the entire neighborhood, the entire community. Because affordable housing is just one part of what we're doing. And so much of what we plan to do all over the city, and particularly in some of the areas that we will have the opportunity to rezone, we'll be doing more with schools, more with parks, more with community facilities to make neighborhoods stronger. In neighborhoods nearby, even where we are now, what we've been able to do to help turn around Boys and Girls High School, a legendary institution in the community. That's good for the larger community. That's good for the children who live in the affordable housing. Or the Stockton Playground, a playground that was ignored for a long time. We're going to invest $2 million to make it a quality playground with a lot of amenities, with greenery and playground equipment and picnic tables and things that the neighborhood needs. So it's about lifting up all the families of the neighborhood. We're very proud of what's been achieved in 2015, but literally it is only just a beginning, because the mission is to make New York City a place for everyone, to make sure everyone has a chance to succeed in this city, to rise together in this city. That has been the magic formula in New York City's history. That's what worked in the past, and that's what can and must work for us again in the future. Quickly in Spanish. Hoy me complace anunciar que el año pasado aseguramos más de 21,000 unidades de vivienda asequible, la mayor producción anual en 25 años. Y ya hemos asegurado más de 40,000 unidades, suficiente para dar vivienda a 100,000 neoyorquinos. Con estos resultados, seguimos avanzando con pasos firmes hacia nuestra meta de 200,000 unidades de vivienda asequible para el año 2024. With that, I'm going to introduce the two heroes of the hour. First, our great HPD Commissioner, Vicki Bean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your leadership and for the attention that you've put and the focus that you've put on providing affordable housing to so many people throughout New York City. The 40,000 units that we've been able to produce over the last 2 years, which will provide housing for more than 100,000 people, that is a large village. But it also takes a large village to do that. And those are the people that I want to really thank today. And as I look out to see so many of our partners in so many ways, from the banks who help us finance this, to the developers, to the property managers, to the marketing agents, there are so many people that we rely on. But I want to focus just for a minute on the people within HPD who work many, many, many hours late into the night trying to solve problems and trying to get this right. And let me start with Eric Enderlin, who is our Deputy Commissioner of Development and a special policy advisor to me, and without whom this certainly could not be done. He is really a champion, and his team, Miriam Colon, Kim Darga, John Garrity, Jessica Katz, Susan Kensky, Lisa Talma, and all of their teams who are here today. You couldn't ask for more dedicated folks, more creative problem solvers. And they are helped by so many people. Matt Shaffett, our general counsel, Ken Curlin, the associate general counsel who's in charge of real estate transactions, Eva Trimble, who works it all out budget-wise, Daniel Hernandez, who works it through the public planning process, Louise Carroll, who works so many of our inclusionary housing, David Quart, who manages all of our research and communications, Anthony Thomas, Anne-Marie Hendrickson, who does amazing work in managing and asset managing all of the properties that we take in, and of course Vito Mustachullo, who makes sure that every tenant in the city of New York gets what they deserve. So there are so many people, all 2,000 people at HPD, who are critically necessary to do the work that we do. We are honored, Luz, to be able to provide housing for folks like you, and it is our great honor, but it does take a village, and I want to thank each and every one of them. So thank you all.
Thank you. That sounded suspiciously like Vicki's Golden Globes Award speech. Producers, directors, I think you look great. Gary, Rodney, and everyone at HDC, again, they do not get the attention they deserve, but none of this could happen if we didn't have the experts at putting together the financing and creating these plans that allow all these other things to come to bear. So I want to say, Gary, you and your team, maybe you're unsung heroes, but you're still heroes. Gary Rodney, president of HDC.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for your leadership. I want to thank a few people on my team, but first I just want to echo something that the Mayor mentioned before. I mean, I think it's great that we're able to be here and say that we've financed 40,000 units in a plan. It's an amazing feat, and I think we've kind of set ourselves up to kind of continue to surpass ourselves if we can. But most importantly, it's about the opportunities we're able to provide for the people that reside in the homes, people like Luz. I mean, to be able to hear her speak and see how emotional she is, I mean, this is why we get up and we do what we do on a daily basis. So I just wanted to say that I'm honored to be part of this team and that we're able to do the type of work that we do day in and day out. And that being said, I just want to thank a few people on my team. First, I want to start with Rich Froelich, who's in the back. He's kind of the brains behind the machine. Just his overall dedication and kind of the way he helps us work through so many problems. I'm glad you're on our team, Rich, so thank you. Anthony Richardson, who was able to kind of, with his whole, and our whole development team, who actually can go out and execute on these things day in and day out with such calm and such composure. It's incredible, so thank you. Ellen Duffy, who helps us raise the money. In 2015, HCC issued a little over $1.3 billion, and we were able to finance another $223 million in our own cash to come into these projects. Things like that are not done without women, people like Ellen Duffy behind the scenes kind of making these things happen. And a few of our attorneys, Melissa Barkin, Susanna Lipsett, Will Martin, and Paula Carruthers. There's so many more people, but those are some of the key folks I just wanted to give a special thank you to. Thanks.
You. Well done. Okay, and if our council members join us, we'll let them speak when they come along, but let me now say we're going to do some questions on this topic. Then I have two specific additional matters I want to speak about for a few minutes. I'll allow questions, of course, on both of them, and then we'll do general off-topic thereafter. So let's see if there's any questions. Well, I'm going to stall then. I'm stalling. You were good. Was that, what were you on, MSNBC or CNN? You were good. All right. I'm not pulling out the step. I wasn't sure which council member it would be, but I now know. Robert Cornegie, step forward. Your timing's impeccable.
Mr. Mayor, how are you, sir?
All right.
Ooh, I kind of feel like Kramer rushing in and just sliding to the podium.
Well, you're that good. You can handle it.
So, good afternoon. It's always wonderful to welcome my mayor, Mayor de Blasio, to the 36th Council District, especially for an issue as important as this. When people think of Central Brooklyn, they sometimes focus on the beautiful brownstones that characterize so many of our blocks. But we believe that the residents who live in apartment buildings are just as important to the strength of Bed-Stuy and Crown Heights as our homeowners. And they deserve to see a future where they and their children can afford to stay right here. But for so many families, the housing market is a relentless tide, eroding their resources and threatening to sweep them out in a terrifying sea of instability. Thanks to Mayor de Blasio's administration and his work, the families of Bed-Stuy and Crown Heights are more secure today, including the many residents of this 266-unit building, which will be affordable until 2060. You can clap for that. Yeah.
I like it.
A date I hope I'll be around to see. My daughter's here, she'll see it. And many more affordable rentals and home ownership units are in the pipeline. I'm very proud to be part of securing affordable housing in this community to benefit families today and for generations to come. And I look forward to continuing to work in partnership to accomplish this with the administration. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your commitment, man.
Thank you.
Go over there.
All right.
See some of my friends and family here.
Amazingly, if Robert stands behind me, I will not block him. And I want to thank my good friend and someone who now is a council member for the district I had the honor of serving. Been such a great voice for affordable housing in the city for many years. Brad Lander, thank you very much for being with us. Yes, you can clap for him. Okay, we're going to go back over that again. So we're going to do questions on this topic, and then a couple of specific things I want to raise, questions on that, and then off topics. Yes, ma'am. Juan Manuel.
How many of these 40,000 units are ready to go, ready for families to move in? Is it just that the city has put the money, but the apartments might not be ready?
So I'm going to have Vicki go into detail, reminding you, and again, the plan is worth a look if people haven't looked in a while. 120,000 units will be preserved over 10 years. 80,000 will be built new. Obviously, once you secure the financing, you're home free to build, but it takes a while. The preserved happens a lot quicker because it's actual existing apartments. Why don't you break out the numbers?
So remember that these these homes are homes that were financed since January of 2014. New construction usually takes about 2 years, so we're just starting to see those come online. We've seen many, and we can get those numbers to you from Housing Connect, which is the lottery, of course, that people have to enter. The preservation units take less time, and so we've been putting many of them into service right away. The ones that we just closed in December, the preservation units will tend to come online 6 months, 8 months, et cetera. So, but we can get you the precise breakdowns from Housing Connect. Okay?
Wiley Norville, you will get that information out. Okay, and I think that's be a good thing for us to refer to in all of our events from now. The actual number of people are in the homes already. Okay, yes.
Mr. Mayor, back in February, you touted the Ebbets Field complex affordable housing worth preserving. Some of those apartments have been refurbished, rehabilitated, and are back on the market. Studios, 450 square foot studios for $1,300 a month. Are you happy with those prices? I mean, how do you feel about what's gone on there as far as the larger affordable housing?
I'll just speak broadly. I haven't been back to the Ebbets Field houses in a bit, so I'll speak about the broad situation, and Vicki, feel free to jump in. Again, the plan, one of the things we're very proud of in this plan is we broke out the income levels from the very beginning. So you can see exactly how many apartments will be produced, built, and preserved for each income level. And we said from the beginning, we're trying to reach New Yorkers who need affordable housing, some of whom are very low income, some of whom are, working folks struggling to make ends meet, some of whom are more moderate income. We've often said, and you've heard it, that if a family of public servants, a cop and a teacher, we want them to be able to live in New York City. So we have affordable housing for different levels of incomes. So I think the point here is we want to see that in a range of neighborhoods as well. As I said, in this first 2 years, about 70% of what has been produced is for folks at some of the lowest income levels. But the plan as a whole, we want to reach across the spectrum. Do you want to add anything? Okay. Go ahead, Sally.
Kind of a two-part question. First of all, how much of this growth do you see as resulting from a burst in new construction because of 421A expiring? What kind of concerns about that? And also, sort of to follow up on that, in the next year there won't be that push, and interest rates are going up. But I'm just wondering if you have any tools that are going to be used next year that aren't in play right now.
So we did certainly see a rise in building permits resulting undoubtedly from the desire to get in the ground before 421A. But remember that the kinds of statistics that the mayor gave were over a 25-year period, and 421A has been threatened with expiration basically every 4 years, so it kind of works out over time. So in terms of what we will see next year, we are always rolling out new programs. We're trying to figure out new ways of bringing people into the programs. We're rolling out a green preservation program, as you know, that we hope will bring a lot of new buildings into preservation programs and affordability programs. So we're always going to be rolling out new programs, and they will come throughout the years, as the needs arise. Okay.
I'd also add, I think the numbers so far, being ahead of pace means that we have real momentum here. We know there'll be ups and downs along the way. But remember, also because there's a preservation element and a new construction element, maybe at some points over the 10 years, new construction is a particularly strong place. Other points we might lean more to the preservation side. But the overall numbers we feel very good about. Yes?
I was wondering if you could comment a little bit about the geographical distribution of these units, and specifically if there has been any neighborhoods or boroughs where it has been more difficult to find these kind of opportunities.
So again, Gary or Vicki, whoever wants to jump in, I'll start by saying, I think when it comes to preservation, we obviously have lots of different places we can reach all over the 5 boroughs. When it comes to new building, as you know, that's going to depend on do we have available space or in some cases a rezoning. So I would differentiate the two. I think preservation clearly is where we can reach almost across the board. New building, there's some limitations depending on where there's available land and available space to work with. Anyone want to add?
So most of the units over the 2 years were in Manhattan. 14,000 of them were in Manhattan. The next were in highest and about the same were in Bronx and Brooklyn, and then Queens and Staten Island are fewer. So in terms of challenges, that's one of the challenges that we have in terms of new construction is always finding land that we can use and land that's zoned appropriately, and that's something, as you know, that we're working very hard on across the city.
Mr. Mayor, over this same time period, how many units were lost to market rate? And does that do these numbers factor in those numbers, meaning has there actually been a net gain, or has there been a loss?
You're referring to units that come out of rent regulation or come out of Mitchell-Lum or other affordable programs. And now we're talking about that which we are contributing. That you're raising a very real point and a very meaningful one, because that flow of units out has always been a problem. There was a little bit of improvement in the rent laws last year in Albany that made it a little less likely for some of those to come out. We also have had some tremendous success, and again, I give all the credit to the folks standing around me, stopping some developments that were about to become market rate and be gone from affordability forever. Most notably, Stuytown Peter Cooper, that was almost 5,000 units. Riverton, almost 1,000 units. So what I'm very proud of with this team is that they've managed to see, the iceberg up ahead, the chance we could lose vast amounts of affordable housing, and they've stopped it. And they've preserved that affordable housing for the long term. But we have a real problem at the same time, because we do keep seeing some units go out. I don't know if we have those numbers at our fingertips. If not, we can get them to you.
Actually, the rent regulation, the units that expire out of rent regulation are very hard to track, and we don't have those numbers yet for 2015. We can try to get you the numbers for 2014. But we are, as the mayor said, because we achieved some reforms in Albany last year, we are seeing a reduction in that, and we think that will help stem that tide for now.
And I would say also one last point, Courtney, that's the goal of the next opportunity is to continue to strengthen those regulations to preserve more units for the long haul. And anytime we see a development, I use Stuytown Peter Cooper and I use Riverton as examples, but anytime that Vicki, Gary, and their colleagues see another opportunity, whether it's a Mitchell-Lum or any other type of development that might be reachable, we're looking for those opportunities all the time. Anna.
As the commissioner said, Staten Island was the lowest in terms of adding or preserving units. And I think since your last announcement in July, only 50 units were added or preserved. I was just wondering, do you think that you may be underutilizing Staten Island given the size of the borough and just the opportunities that might be there on the North Shore in particular because it's closer to transit?
Well, we'll be looking to do a lot more in Staten Island. I think there are some real opportunities with available land, and certainly something I've talked to the borough president about. I think in terms of rezoning as well, we're going to have a potentially great opportunity there to create a lot of affordability. So I would say in Staten Island, there's much more to come.
Of these 20,000 units, a number of them were in the works for a long time. 286 Ashland, the Pacific Park, the Durst Pyramid. Were you able to modify some of those plans that were hatched during the Bloomberg era, win more affordability? Are you treating city land differently than they did?
I'll speak broadly and let my colleagues fill in the blanks. Look, I think you saw in the beginning with Domino and some other examples that we were able in many cases to improve those plans to get more affordability, get more back for the community and for the taxpayer. That's certainly been the model, bless you, that's certainly been the model that, look, I think these experts would say the reason we came up with our counting methodology is we said until something is secured in finance, it's theoretical. And if it was secured in finance before we walked in the door, we don't count it. If we finished it, even if some real good work had been done before, and I do give the previous administration credit for moving some great initiatives, but it ain't over till it's over. So if we're the ones to finish, that's when we count it. But I think in a lot of these cases, we have had an opportunity to improve the outcomes in the process, and I think it's been made clear that we intend to drive a hard bargain. A lot of times we won't finish a deal until we feel it is to our satisfaction. Gary or Vicki, want to add? I can do this. No, it's not your fault.
And let me just add one thing about that is that we did introduce this a year ago what we call new term sheets, which is a geeky way of saying these are the new minimums that we expect and the maximums that we will give in terms of subsidy. So those term sheets are now well ensconced in these numbers and reflect both getting much further down in terms of affordability and asking a lot more for the subsidy that we're giving.
Okay. Who else have I missed? Yes.
So roughly 7,000 of these units, or almost 7,000 units, are for people in the income band of $93,000 to $128,000 a year. Your administration has released refers this as a middle income bracket. Is somebody who makes $128,000 a year really middle class? And should they be getting subsidized housing? And I have a second question to follow up.
Yes, we said that in May of 2014. So I appreciate your question. The answer is yes. This is what we declared publicly from the very beginning. We believe the answer is yes.
Okay, and the second question is actually bouncing off Sally's question. There is a threat that 421A could expire, which, many people in the real estate industry say that would be the death of development. How has your administration precisely prepared for that possibility?
I think the death of development is an overstatement by any definition. Look, we believe that the 421A reform made all the sense in the world, that we should stop putting taxpayer money where it didn't belong, and that we should get a lot more affordability out of 421A. There is still time for a positive result. I hope that the folks negotiating, take full advantage of this time and get us to a positive result. So I don't want to talk about hypotheticals. I will say, I think Vicki referred wryly to the history. There's not the first time that 421A has been on the brink. I think there's a lot of reasons why it can be saved here with the right reforms.
A hypothetical, we're talking about 4 days it could expire.
4 days is a long time in this work. Again, we've been down this road before. There's been times when it lapsed in the past, and then there was oftentimes action to resolve the issue after the fact. So there's time on the clock. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, congratulations on your vision. Joe Coelho from the New York State Association.
I'm sorry, we're doing media questions only. My apology. Okay, my apology. Media questions on topic. Let's see if we have any other on topic going once. Wait, I see a hand. Yes.
Hi, Mayor. I've talked to folks in the community, and they actually, when they apply for this kind of housing, there's usually a gap between when they're struggling, moving from bed to bed, like $10 a day, to like a permanent housing. So, is there any policy in the city to bridge that gap, or they have to just to tough it out and wait?
Do you mean to say there's some people who are paying so little that even you don't think they could afford affordable housing? Is that what you're saying?
They are like moving from places to places because
like informal situations and temporary situations. Let me see if Vicki or Steve may want to comment as well. Wow, this thing is killing my foot. There we go.
Sorry. So we do try to use our Section 8 vouchers and also the coupons that the city has made available to help provide permanent housing for those folks. And we have done a tremendous amount of that, and Steve can speak more broadly to those overall numbers. But in those situations where somebody is really scraping by on the kind of money that you're talking about and moving from house to house, we try to provide permanent housing through either vouchers or, in many cases, they need supportive housing to address some of the underlying challenges that they have. And we are providing supportive housing as we go as well. Okay?
Steve, want to add? No? Yes? No? Sure. Okay.
Thank you. I mean, clearly the situations you described didn't happen overnight. And the numbers of the programs that the mayor has put in place are enabling us to begin to address those kinds of situations. The 22,000 men, women, and children that moved out of the shelter system, for example, over the last year or so is as a result of new housing tools, new rental assistance that the mayor's put in place, and use of some existing tools as well. And the 15,000 units of supportive housing that's part of the plan going forward will certainly have an impact on the kinds of problems that you described.
See if there's any other questions on this topic. Okay, I want to give just a moment to the chair of the Housing Committee in the City Council, Jumaane Williams, to add his comments before we move on to other topics. Welcome.
I like to be taller.
You want to be tall? Okay,
yeah, I want to be tall.
Be tall.
I want to take the
height.
height.
You are even taller.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for allowing us to say a couple of words. I'm sure everything's been said. I want to congratulate the mayor, obviously, for today, but first for making housing one of the pivotal points of his administration. We all know and we all can see how important it is today, how important it's going to be for quite some time. I think housing connects almost everything else that we deal with from a community standpoint, from public safety. You can't get well from the hospital if you don't have a place to stay. It's hard for your kids to study in school if you don't have a place to stay. So housing really sums that up. I think it's important to show how difficult it is, however, to provide the housing that's adequately needed. And it's a very difficult job to do that. And I'm proud that the mayor has taken that on. And I know we have to have a little patience as we move forward. But I think this is a great number. And so I think we're taking great strides going toward that. And I would ask the city and everyone to help support the plan that we're doing. You can't agree with everything all the time, but we do have to be community partners and be proud in the progress that we are making. So, and I'll continue to push for us to go further, but we should always take the time to celebrate the progress that we are doing, and I think today is a good day. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, I want to talk about two topics. I'm going to raise each topic, and if there's any questions on each one, we'll take them in turn, and then again we'll go to after that to all general topics. So something really horrendous happened on Thursday night in Brownsville, and I think all over the city we're feeling the anger and the disgust at this horrible act. This poor young woman attacked by 5 teenagers. Her father forced away at gunpoint. This is something deeply troubling. I feel this very personally. Obviously, I am the father of a young woman, and this is the kind of thing that, for me, deeply, deeply troubles me, and it's an intolerable situation. And we're going to fight to make sure that young women don't go through this kind of tragedy. Now, the NYPD has been very aggressive in addressing this case. So I think you all know by now, 4 of the 5 assailants are in custody. I am very confident we will find the 5th assailant. NYPD is very focused, and we take every one of these attacks very, very seriously. Those in custody right now, a 14-year-old, 2 15-year-olds, and a 17-year-old. Now, there was a concern raised, and I always want these concerns to be addressed. There was a concern raised about the response time. I want to make very clear, I have looked into this personally, there was no delay in the response time. The victim's father approached a patrol car from the 7-3 precinct on the street, told the officers about the attack. The officers immediately responded and found the victim at the playground. There was not a 911 call. That's important to recognize here. There had been a 911 call. Of course, that would have instantly led to action. But the officers who the victim's father found went to work right away. The 7-3 precinct went farther, did a canvass of the whole area, found the video footage that was so crucial to finding these assailants, and that led to the surrender of 2 of them and the arrest of 2 others. So the fact that the precinct went out, worked the area until they found the footage, and the footage made it inevitable to these assailants that they were going to be arrested. That is why we have 4 of the 5. That is why I believe we will find the 5th soon. But the public can help us, and we want the public's help. The NYPD needs your help. The Crime Stoppers hotline, 800-577-TIPS, 800-577-TIPS, or you can go online, www.nypdcrimestoppers, that's all one word, nypdcrimestoppers.com, or you can text to 274-637, that is the word crimes, 274-637, and then enter TIP 577, TIP 577. 3 different ways to report anything you may know about the 5th assailant. We want to find this individual immediately. Quickly, on the same topic in Spanish, la policía sigue investigando una violación en grupo que se llevó a cabo en Brownsville. 4 jóvenes han sido arrestados y el NYPD sigue buscando al 5º sospechoso. Si tienen alguna información, por favor, llamen al 1-800-577-8477. So we really want the public to help us find this last assailant. Any questions on this topic? Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, Brian Coneybear from CBS2. City Councilwoman Lori Cumbo and some women's advocates held a news conference on the steps of City Hall today. They're asking point blank, is the NYPD and the city, for that matter, doing enough to protect women in the city?
The NYPD every day is focused on protecting women in this city. And we are bringing online 2,000 more patrol officers in the course of this year. Some of them graduated just the other day and are already serving on our streets. We're improving the training of our officers when it comes to crimes against women. There's a lot of efforts being made, but there's more to do. There's no question there's more to do. We've seen an uptick in the numbers of rapes. Some of that is because of better reporting, and that it's difficult to say this, but that is something that actually suggests progress because we need this crime reported. We do not ever want it swept under a rug. We need it reported. So some of those increases represent people coming forward from even past crimes to acknowledge what happened so we can go after those who were their assailants. But some of it is causing us tremendous pause, obviously. If we see another area where there's a problem, we have to address it aggressively. So there's a lot of focus at the NYPD in addressing this issue.
There's also been rapes in some cabs, a
Yes.
slight increase in that. Do you support putting panic buttons in all cabs and for-hire vehicles?
I think we should look at all the options. That's certainly an option. I don't have a final opinion because it hasn't been studied by the NYPD yet and the TLC, but that's something certainly worthy of study. Mara.
Mr. Mayor, the broader public wasn't informed about the rape in Brownsville until Saturday evening, which was 2 days after the incident took place. These were a group of 5 people who were still on the run at the time, or at least some of them were. One of them may have been armed. Do you think that's appropriate? And then just off of that and related, do you agree with Commissioner Bratton's suggestion that women should buddy up to help prevent sexual assault in cabs?
Two different things I want to address. So first of all, I don't know exactly when the information was verified to the point that it could be made public. And obviously, because it was a rape investigation, there are real sensitivities. So I want to be careful not knowing the exact process by which NYPD got to the decision of when it was time to divulge information. As you know, sometimes divulging information helps catch suspects. Sometimes it is unhelpful in terms of a process that's already underway to capture the suspect. So I want to be careful about the details. But I think as a broad rule, there are many, many times, once we have the information that we believe is in solid shape, we go to the public, we put out a picture, we put out a description, we tell people we need their help. Not only do we want people to be safe and be aware, but we want their help to find someone. So that, I think, has been shown many, many times, but I'd be happy to look into what constituted that specific timeline. On the other point, look, I believe what Commissioner Bratton was saying is that people need to be careful always, especially as they're traveling around. But it's our obligation to protect them, obviously. We want people to be aware. We want people to be vigilant against crime, against terror. We want people to, if they see something, say something. All those are areas where we ask the public to help protect themselves and help protect all of us. But in the end, it's our responsibility to make sure people are safe. That's why, again, 2,000 more cops coming, better technology so our cops can do much better investigations, things like ShotSpotter, things like the iPhones they'll now have. So and more training, including training in how to deal with special victims. So it is our responsibility to get it right. We continue to make the changes we need to do a better job all the time at protecting the women of this city. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, there's been a lot of reporting about youth crew violence, especially in Brownsville. Is there any connection to youth crews or gangs in this? And you mentioned that all 4 were underage or minors. What's the significance of that?
I think we need to know more. That's why the investigation is underway. Look, I don't know yet. I have not heard that they might be gang or crew related, but I'm not ruling that out at all. We have a real gang and crew problem in this city. There's no question about it. We've talked about it many times. It is, as Commissioner Bratton said at the press conference last Monday, summarizing all of 2015, one of the areas of concern is how much of the violence that we do have is coming from gangs and crews. Our overall violence numbers keep going down. Our overall numbers of shootings, et cetera, have gone down. But that which we do have emanates substantially from gangs and crews. Now, at the same time, NYPD is showing more and more capacity to undermine those gangs and crews. There's been a number of takedowns. We're using social media very effectively to undermine gangs and crews. So there's some reasons why we can find real opportunities for progress in addressing this problem. But I don't know in this specific case if that's going on. What I know is it's disgusting. It's young people that obviously went on the wrong path, and that's something we work all the time to stop. So it's very troubling. And we have to do everything we can to stop this kind of thing from happening. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, could you talk to us about when you first heard about this horrible incident from the NYPD and exactly how that played out over time, when you were told, and then what happened?
I'd have to get back to you because I don't remember the exact hour and all that, but I can get back to you on that.
A police official told the New York Times that the young woman and her father were drinking in the park. I was just curious whether or not you think that's an important detail.
I don't know the specifics of what happened, so I want to be careful. But on first blush, I don't see how that factors into this equation.
What is going wrong when you have 14 and 15-year-olds committing gunpoint gang rapes?
I think it says that a lot of our young people are not getting the guidance they need. They don't have the structure in their lives they need. They don't have the hope we want them to have. Look, I've seen this problem for a long time, but it makes it no less comforting that it's a problem we've had for a long time. I mean, we've got young people who don't believe there is anything better to do in some cases than be a member of a gang or a crew, and don't think they have any future prospects and haven't been taught a better way of thinking about themselves or their responsibilities to others. This is something we have to go at with lots of different tools. It's a very complex problem, but all of the pieces of the equation that can be changed, we're trying to work on. We're trying to get young people earlier and better education. Even something like affordable housing, so that families are more stable, can help parents bring up their children with more hope, with more possibility. There's lots and lots we have to do, and sometimes we have to be very tough on these young people if they've taken the wrong path. So this is a big challenge, but one I believe it's fair to say the city has shown its ability to make real progress on. I don't accept the gang and crew problem we have. When you look at some other places in the country, thank God ours is much more contained, but it's something we have to work on every day. I'll see if there's anything else on this, and then I'm going to go to another topic. Yes.
Follow up, Mr. Mayor, did you say that you thought it was a good idea for the buddy system or not?
I think it falls under the broad rubric, and I believe this is what the commissioner was saying, of people being vigilant, being careful in what they do. But again, I don't want there to be any mistake. We are responsible for the safety of the women of this city across the board. We have to make sure, two different concepts, I think they're related though. I want people to be 100% clear. We are responsible for making sure women are safe in this city. Okay, I'm going to go to another topic. And this one, I'm very happy to say, is some good news, and good news that does say something hopeful about many of the young people of this city. So we have some tough situations that pull at us and trouble us, but there's also a lot of young people on the right path and some progress happening for those young people. So let's talk about that as well. As part of our equity and excellence vision for our schools, we committed to reaching a high school graduation rate of 80% over the next 10 years. New York City has never come near an 80% graduation rate, but we believe that's what's necessary for a great world city. And today we have further evidence that we are on our way. For the first time ever, the 4-year graduation rate for New York City high schools has risen to over 70%. And that is good news for this city. Over 70% for the first time ever. You can clap for that, people. What's going on back here? For the 2014-2015 school year, graduation rate rose to 70.5%. That is a 2-point gain over the previous year. I'm going to show you a graphical representation. And this is actually a good news story. And I want to give some credit where credit is due. The Bloomberg administration also gets a lot of credit. This is where the Bloomberg administration began, and they certainly made steady progress. We're proud to have picked that up and deepened that progress. And our new approach has us well on the way to the goal of 80% graduation rate over the next 10 years. Here's another good news story. Again, this is about 15 years ago, a 22% dropout rate. That meant kids that within the 4 years that were supposed to be their high school years left and never came back. That number now, 9%. Now, that's still 9% too many, but boy, what a difference that makes. There's been real concern and fair concern about disparities in education, and there still are some real disparities to overcome. But when it comes to the progress that has been made, it has been across the board in all demographic communities, and we've seen the highest gains among our Latino, Asian, and Black students. So that's something good for the city as well. Since we took office, over the last 2 years, a 4.4% increase, or 4.4 point, I should say, increase in the graduation rate. Again, it's numbers. We have to measure ourselves by numbers, but every one of those numbers represents another child who graduated and is on a better path, a family that succeeded in shepherding that child to graduation. It's real progress. And remember also, in this city and this state, we have the highest and most rigorous standards in the entire nation. So here, graduating means more than it does in many other places because we hold ourselves to a very high academic standard. The reduction in the dropout rate, very important. That means in addition to the 70.5% of the kids that we graduate on time, 21% of the kids who don't, of our overall kids, don't graduate on time, but they do graduate. It might take them 5 years, it might take them 6 years, but they graduate. That last number, that 9%, we're going to work on relentlessly to pull them back, to get those kids back into the educational system and show them a pathway to graduation. So much more to do, but a lot of what we have started to put in place is working. We saw an increase in test scores. We've seen an increase in graduation rates, and we're really going to deepen the equity and excellence plan. That's including computer science for all. That's including AP classes in every high school, algebra for all in middle school, and all of our kids at the second grade level reading on grade level over the next 10 years. Those are building blocks of this bigger plan, and we're happy to see real progress. Quickly in Spanish, las tasas de graduación de nuestras escuelas secundarias ha superado el 70% por primera vez, y las tasas de deserción escolar han caído casi un 1%. Esta es una noticia excelente para el futuro de nuestros niños y el futuro de nuestra ciudad. Any questions on the graduation rate that we announced today? Let's see if there's anything there. Yes, sir.
In spite of the improvements, numbers among Latinos remain the lowest. I was wondering, how do you explain this? And also, do you have any ideas try to aim to this specific segment of the population to solve this problem?
That, you're right, that the Latino graduation rate at 64%, we have more to do for sure. Now, that rate has also seen a steady increase over the years I've mentioned, and a real important increase from last year to this year. So that's about a 2.6% increase. So it shows some of the efforts underway are working right now. But I think all of the pieces that we have put in place, I certainly believe that if we're talking about the long term, things like full-day pre-K for all are going to make a huge difference. If we're talking about some of the things I talked about a moment ago, we're going to put in place over these very next few years. The algebra programs, the computer science programs, what we're doing in renewal schools are going to reach a lot of our Latino students and improve their situation. The increased dual language programs, I think, are going to help a lot of Latino students, including very recent immigrants. And remember, this is a city where new people are coming all the time. And some kids come during high school from all over the world and have to enter high school, continue their education while learning English simultaneously. We're trying to reach a lot of those kids with better English language learner programs. So I'm very hopeful that these pieces are starting to add up and they're going to reach more and more of our Latino students as well. Any other questions on this before we go to general topics? Going once, going twice. It is a good news story. Going once, going twice. Okay, general topics. Yes, sir.
There has been some talk about Mike Bloomberg possibly running for president. Do you think Mike Bloomberg should run for president? How do you feel about that?
I think Hillary Rodham Clinton should be president. I am very proud to support Secretary Clinton. I think she has a very powerful vision for the future of this country, and specifically for addressing some of the economic challenges that have plagued us for a quarter century or more, and I'm proud to support her. I respect Mayor Bloomberg, obviously. I had some areas where I agree with him a lot, some areas where I disagree with him a lot, but many, many achievements he deserves real praise for. But I think Hillary Clinton can be and should be our next president.
Mr. Mayor, will you be marching on the St. Patrick's Day parade?
Well, we have more work to do on that front because we're still waiting for some clarity about how the parade will be handled. But I'm very encouraged. I'm hearing positive ideas from the new parade leadership that came in the last year. I think the choice of Senator Mitchell as Grand Marshal is a very positive choice, one of the great American leaders of the last few generations, and someone who is well known for being an agent of inclusion and tolerance and understanding, and a great peacekeeper in terms of all the work he did after the Senate. So I'm encouraged, but there's still some more work to be done to understand exactly what the approach will be. I'm hopeful we can do some good work with the parade organizing committee. Again, that's an ongoing conversation with the parade organizers, but again, I'm hopeful. Jen.
Today there was some rally out in front of City Hall with Hakeem Jeffries and Controller Stringer, where they want the city to use their purchasing power to sort of pressure gun makers to make safer weapons. Do you have a position on this? Is this something you would support?
I haven't seen the specific proposal, but the broad concept of using our purchasing power I agree with, meaning I've called for divestment by all public pension funds in gun manufacturers who sell assault weapons and military-grade weapons on the open market. We're going to be working with leaders around the country on that. But I certainly think thinking about our purchasing power as another tool makes sense. I have to see exactly what they're proposing, but I think it's the right vein to be looking at. Courtney.
So tonight you'll be speaking to NYCHA residents, talking to them about potentially building new housing on their development property. Yep. How does this plan fit into your overall affordable housing plan, and what's your expectation? There's been a lot of anger from NYCHA residents. They're not necessarily supportive of this.
Well, I think part of the anger is because there's real fear that goes back many years about any hint of a potential privatization. I'm going to make very clear to the residents tonight that I oppose privatization of NYCHA properties. It will not happen on my watch. And I want to preserve NYCHA for the long term. There's 400,000 plus people in our housing authority. This is the bedrock of affordable housing in this city, and it has to be protected. So I'm going to make that clear. I'm going to make clear that unlike past plans, this plan comes with 50% of the units will be affordable. The market rate units are going to provide resources to help fix the development surrounding them, which is desperately needed. We all know that most of our developments have millions and millions of dollars of repair needs. So this is going to be how we direct a lot of resources to that specific development and help with NYCHA's overall financial problem, which is severe. And we want to be very clear, NYCHA is in severe, dangerous financial condition. And we have to fix that. So I think when people hear there's a real commitment against privatization, a real belief in helping the specific development with real capital repairs and specific repairs. We very much want to hire residents from the development and any construction that is done and any of the building service thereafter. This is a very different kind of plan. I think people will see that. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, the New York Times opined on Friday about a series of home raids, the Immigration Department ramping up home raids, especially from...
You mean ICE? Yeah.
From Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. Is the city working with the feds on this, or is the city out to protect immigrants?
I've said before, I want to emphasize that I'm not comfortable with these raids. I am very worried about people who were refugees fleeing violence in places like El Salvador being caught up in these raids. I'm very worried about families being torn apart. We see no evidence of any activity in New York City of this nature. Meaning no raids in the city. I certainly don't think there should be raids in the city. I think the whole approach should be reconsidered. And our focus right now should be on comprehensive immigration reform.
There had been a rumor about an ICE raid at a high school in Harlem.
No raids in the city. I've checked on that recently. And there's been no raids in the city, certainly that we've had reported to us.
The NYPD issued departmental charges to a sergeant who was present during Eric Garner's death. I was wondering if you see that as some measure of justice and whether or not you think that there will be more departmental charges?
Again, there's a really clear process here, and I don't offer opinions on due process. The U.S. Department of Justice has to make decisions in the other element of this case, and that when that is all adjudicated, then the department will make its own decision as what it is. The department has come to the conclusion those charges were warranted. Meanwhile, we all know related to Officer Pantaleo. So that's how the due process works. I have absolute faith that it is being handled appropriately by both the Justice Department and the NYPD.
Mr. Mayor, the Powerball has gone to $1.3 billion.
I have duly noticed. If I don't show up for the next presser, it means miraculously I got the winning ticket.
$2 in a dream? I mean, would you self-finance a campaign? Would you?
I've already, sadly, Rich, I already committed it to the coffers in New York City. I don't know what I was thinking. That was when the number was lower. Happily is a strong word. I would dutifully, Sally.
That's very generous. I just wanted to go back to 421A.
But it was on record. So if I were to buy a ticket, I would happily donate the proceeds to the people of New York City.
Happily?
Well.
To follow up on Will's question, I know that it has been threatened in the past, but I don't think its future has ever been dependent in the past on this kind of a negotiation between two private parties. And I'm wondering, as we're getting close to the deadline, what you think about the arrangement that's been set up, where this kind of...
I think it's evident that we put forward a plan that we believed was inherently fair. It had been worked through with housing advocates, the city government, the real estate industry. I thought it was one of the better examples of everyone being brought around a table and getting to a big set of solutions that reform the program, that stop wasting taxpayers' money on luxury housing, that got us a lot more affordable housing for the money that we were investing. I think there was concern that maybe the Assembly and the Senate wouldn't agree. The Assembly and the Senate did agree. They accepted it almost entirely as it was. So I think it was sound from the beginning. But here we are. Legislative process is a strange and miraculous thing. So there's still time for it to be resolved. But I would say to all those doing negotiation, they should pay very close attention to the fact that so many people in this city want to see this succeed so we can get on with the work of creating affordable housing. Let me just offer a personal cultural comment, if I may. Two things. One, obviously, for a lot of us, this is a sad day with the loss of David Bowie, who was a big presence in a lot of our lives. Many, many wonderful songs, but Young Americans is the one I would refer you all to. Do you remember your President Nixon? A line that rang through my ears for many, many years, but a guy who did a lot of good in the world. And my other cultural reference, so I mentioned to you all the movie Spotlight. I have another one to refer you all to. If you have not seen The Big Short, it is absolutely, positively necessary to see that movie. It, in its own way, illustrates a lot of things that should have been talked about more at the time and still need to be talked about in this country. And it makes your blood boil. So I would urge everyone to do that. I saw it last night with Shirlane and Dante, and all of our blood was boiling. Thank you, everyone.